This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, actually. Okay, should we start?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for the Trauma-Informed Care and Systems Navigation Workshop. So the Systems Navigation Program at Vision for Equality helps families by giving some hands-on trainings and some peer-to-peer support to navigate the systems. Families will learn how to manage and encounter the intellectual disability and developmental disability and autism systems. Families will learn positive approaches to address loved ones' needs, troubleshoot challenges. Families will feel less isolated and hopefully more connected and supported. We are funded by the Philadelphia Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services.
Trauma-informed families will receive counseling, training, resources to address trauma. Families will learn healthy ways to manage stress in their day-to-day lives. Families will also have a safe place to process their emotions. Families will be able to recognize trauma, heal, and maintain their wellness.
So now we will introduce ourselves.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's presentation. My name is Janine Jenkins Smith, and I work part-time as a family navigator for Vision for Equality. I have an extensive background in early intervention and school-age services. I previously worked for Easter Seals, and I currently work for Delaware County Intermediate Unit. I'm a mother of 3, and I began advocating for my daughter, who's 26 years of age, 26 years ago. I have a daughter with cerebral palsy. She has epilepsy, and she's a quadriplegic. I also have a son who's older, who's 30, and then I have a daughter who's younger than her, who's 22. I believe, and I solely stand on, that everyone deserves to have the highest quality, fun-filled life, no matter how that may look for them. Everybody is different, and so each scenario will look different, but as long as you're happy, that's most important. I also believe supporting families and feel empowered, inspired, motivated, and all things are possible. Everyone has the right to be respected, empowered, engaged within their community. And the one thing I always stand on is for every no, there is a yes. Just yield and go a different direction. So thank you.
Thanks, Janine. Hi, everyone. I'm Sue Tuckerman, and I work both as a family navigator and a family support specialist with Vision for Equality. I also do a little bit of work with the PA Family Network. I am the mom of 3 now adult sons. When I started advocating in the Philadelphia area, I had 3 under 3. So that was in 2000 when my twin sons were diagnosed with autism. My twins are now 25. And I also have a younger son who has recently graduated college and is certainly living his best life at this point. I believe that supporting caregivers, specifically parents, is critical. We are the safety net for our loved ones, and we really need to be supported. As they say, you cannot take care of other people if you're not taking care of yourself. So that's why I work here and are happy to provide this support to families. So thank you for having us, and we hope you learned some things today.
Yes. So our agenda today is the transition process, school-informed information and checklists, available supports, finances and income, legal issues and reminders, and resources.
So we'll talk about the transition process and how there's so many questions. Things like, what should I do? Where will I go? What will they do? Do I have to do this alone? They're not ready to work or live on their own, or are they ready to work and live on their own? Who's going to do the therapy services? If I'm working, who's going to help care for my loved one? Can I afford a day program, or what are the resources available for day programs or supported employment, or whatever is the most appropriate for my loved one?
Yes. The transition process. This is a process that everyone dreads, but we will definitely get through it. And that's why we're here to help you to bridge that between school and programs and opportunities for adult life. The transition process should include assessments and address individual current strengths, their interests, preferences, and their needs.
So talk with your loved one, find out what is most important to them in their adult life. So we recognize that for some people, just having a simple conversation isn't really the easiest thing to do. So when we say talk with your loved one, we also mean, work with your loved one, try to explore different ways to figure out what works for them. Even if your loved one is fully verbal and able to communicate things, they still may not know what they're interested in life. Honestly, I'm in my 50s and I'm still like, I don't know, what am I interested in? So help your loved one explore different ways to figure out what direction they want to go in. And this is really where the transition process comes in with school, so that your loved one can be trying out different things at school. They should be doing, different community outings, trying out different type of work experiences. And a lot of this should be done in the community so they can get the real life experience and know what would work for them or what they think would work for them.
School information and checklist. So the transition process should start at the age of 14. I know some people think that it would start at an older age, but pretty much at 14 is when they're starting high school in general. And that's the time you would really want to start thinking about what they will do post-graduation from their educational, era. So you really want to, that's when transition start. And so even during the student's IEP, they will start inviting the student to sit in at the IEP at the age of 14. And the other thing, that students can stay in school until they're 21. So just remember that your student, your loved one, have the opportunity to stay in school past 18. If they have an IEP, they can stay until they're 21. The IEP team should include the family and the student. Just like I was previously saying, at the age of 14, if they haven't previously attended the IEP, you should really bring them to the table, because that way they're included. They realize what things they should do, or they can just be able to share and talk about their interests of what they even would like to do. So it's very good to have them included in that discussion and to have them feel empowered. The transition time should be used to explore opportunities and interests, just like Sue was just explaining in the previous slide. That's the time to explore what they want to do post-graduation, if they want to go to college, or if they want to work, or if they want to go to a day program. All of that is the time to start just bringing all of the ideas into their head and having that discussion.
Absolutely. There we go. Sorry about that. We're having a little technical difficulty forwarding the slides. So if you're thinking about post-secondary transition or post-secondary education, you'll want to review the transition goals and meet with the school counselor to get the supports and assistance that will be needed for the process. Make sure your evaluations are up to date You may need a new evaluation prior to graduating for that secondary education opportunity. Research the college post-secondary possible scholarships and supports. There are a few websites out there. I believe Think College is one of them. And we will share some resources at the end as well. So if you're thinking about school for your loved one, and your loved one, most importantly, if your loved one is thinking about school, you need to do some research on that and look into them. It is important to know that there are different programs out there. Some are specific to individuals with intellectual disability. Some colleges provide more support than others. So make sure you look into it. Some colleges have programs. They're not actual degree programs, but an individual is able to audit them. So look into the different schools if that's what you're interested in, and do the research on them and ask around of other families, other individuals, as well as the school personnel.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to say, I think a lot of people think that their loved one isn't eligible for college, or is something that they don't think that they would be successful in. But just remember, if you have that evaluation done before school and they take that to the college, most colleges do have things in place to help them, like extra time for testing. They will have someone to support and check in with them, and they give them more time. They give them special accommodations. But just realize that whatever your loved one wants to do or wants to explore, be that support person. Allow them to take ownership of their own lives, because I think it's important. I know someone actually who their parent, didn't think that they wanted to go to college, but their parent didn't think that they would be fit for college. And they made pretty good school grades, but they were just thinking, that wasn't the type of thing that they felt that they should do. And now they're in college and they're very successful at it. And so it's not about what you want to do, even though we have goals and aspirations and we think we know what's best for our kids, but they are adults. So let them be able to explore what it is that they would like to do, and just try to support them as much as possible. Working in community life. So there's, even just like we talked about post-secondary, going to college, you can also think about having a community life, hobbies and friends. Like for my daughter, she has a community life. Post-pandemic, she was going to an adult program, but since the pandemic, and since she's medically compromised, she's been home. So what we do, she has a community life. So we have, she has a hat worker, and she also has her nurse, and they do activities in home. They go for walks in the community. They go to the community libraries. They go to day trips. She does painting. She does arts and crafts. She does music. And all of those things, along with her hat worker here at home. So we have almost built our own day program at home and in our community, so that she can have the best filled life. And actually it works. She wasn't one to really sit in the adult day program, even when she was going. She would like to go only for like half a day, 3 days a week. She didn't want to go every day. But this right here really works for her, because she does some Zoom. She still gets to engage with her friends every week or every other week. And she's out in the community every day for walks, and they go to the library. So she's accessing and doing things in her community that has made a really fun-filled life and abundant life for her. So the other thing is working. They can work. Don't think that your loved one can't work. There are different jobs and different programs that they have that they can work. They can have someone to be able to monitor them, come check in on them if they need extra supports, but don't think that they aren't able to work. They can. And also a day program. That's another option. There's day programs that are still around. You can just go to start visiting them, look at different options, talk to some other people that have transitioned and have people in day programs, check which ones are available in your community, and even possibly out of your community if that's what suits you, your loved one needs. And you just want to make sure that the day program have all that can meet your loved one needs while they are there. So there's different things and different ways that you could come up with so that your loved one can have a fun-filled and prosperous life.
Yeah, and I just want to add, as far as day programs go, there are day programs that are available, but it is important to know that there is a shortage of day programs per se. Some of the day programs that were around prior to COVID no longer exist.
Yes.
So it's important to realize that your son or daughter, your loved one, is not going to graduate school and go right into a day program. That's probably not what's going to happen. So you need to do your research and find out what's around there and find out what the waiting lists are and things like that. And then working again, as Janine said, think about working, and, individuals with disabilities can work. I will say that my sons do work. They work just a few hours, a few times a week, and it has been really a great experience for them. I will say the number one thing that I think impacted them being able to work was the transition program at their school. We made it very, very clear that that was our goal for them, to be able to have some type of employment when they finish school. Everyone finishes school with some type of goal in mind, hopefully, whether it be to go to college or to get a job. And, for us, we've really wanted them working. So we've really, pressed on that with the school. And we work with the school to find different job settings. And, basically they did go out and work while they were at school. They didn't get paid for it, but they went out to different community locations with a jobs coach provided by school. And by the time they were done school, they did have job offers. And I think that was huge. I think that it was much easier to transition into working because they had already been working. They do have a job coach. My guys really do need a lot of support. At this point, they know their job, but they have other challenges. So they continue to need a job coach. And I'm okay with that. Like, they are, at their employment places. It's not the job coach that people focus on, but it's them that people focus on. That, actually the employers really don't even know the job coaches that well because they kind of rotate. But they certainly know my sons, Mike and Eddie. And when we go in there on off hours, everyone, stops to say hello. And talks to them, even if, they may not respond because they don't always have a lot of language. But it is really, really valuable for them to be out in the community. And then, of course, because they're only working a few hours, because that's what works for them, they are also out in the community doing other things. I will say that COVID has really twisted things a little bit, and we've kind of had to take a step back. So we are still looking for other activities and things to do. But try to research them now while your loved one is still in school, when you have some time, when you have the support that's there, when you have the support that and trust and things like that. And make sure it's in the IEP so that it is being followed through on.
Definitely. And just like you said, the options program for employability for students at the schools is very good. So I think people should really check into that. So available supports. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sue.
No, that's all I was going to say.
Okay, so waivers. The infamous waivers.
So this is a big one, right? This is a big one. Everyone wants to know about waivers.
Yes. It is called a waiver because an individual waives the right to an institutional care setting in order to receive support and services in the community. An individual must meet the criteria of needing an institutional level of care, including having significant skill deficits in order to qualify. So, okay. So waivers is pretty much is what we just talked about, but it's actually a government funded program that allows families to be able to have funding to be able to attend different events or get the supports that they need, because your medical does not cover those things once they go post 21. So previously, once they were in school, just to explain that a little bit, is everything was given taken care of through their child's education. So they have the opportunity of once they have education, all the supports that they need, they will receive in school. Once they become 21, you no longer get those supports in school. So you have to apply for a waiver in order to get the supports outside of school once they graduate. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. So before, while they're in school and their school age, before they turn 21, all the services like therapy and all of those things are being provided under the educational system. Once they graduate from school, those things are no longer. They no longer come back to school. They no longer get any therapy services. All of those things that they were getting before school, while they were in school, they no longer will get once they graduate if you do not have the waiver. So it's very, very important that families sign up right away for waivers because they're not just ready available. There's waiting lists for them. So we encourage families to please sign up as soon as possible because your loved one will need a waiver if they have significant needs.
Right. And it's important to know that you don't have to be an adult to apply. You register with your county, and people are recommended to sign up as soon as possible. So as soon as you know that your loved one has an intellectual disability or autism, you probably should contact your county and let them know you want to get some services, a supports coordinator who can help you. Now, you probably wouldn't receive a waiver right away because it is based off need. And as a child, those needs should be covered, as Janine said, through the school system or through Medicaid or through your private insurance. So they're supposed to be covered other ways. So typically, a younger person would be put on the waiting list until they are closer to graduation. Not always. Sometimes younger people do get waivers, and sometimes a person graduates and does not get a waiver. But it's important to get on that waiting list. The counties need to start counting and knowing who to plan for. So that's a big piece of it. They want to know who's coming up and who's going to need these services. So it's really important to register when you can. And we'll talk about that next. In the next slide. But to qualify for a waiver, you have to have Medicaid. So you have to be qualified for Medicaid and you have to have Medicaid. You have to have an ID or autism diagnosis. Previously for the intellectual disability waivers, it was only ID, but they now have broadened it to include an autism diagnosis. In Pennsylvania, there are 3 different intellectual disability waivers. The PFDS, which is the Person Family Directed Service waiver, often considered the small waiver. That one goes up to $41,000 a year. There's also the Community Living waiver, which goes up to $85,000 a year. And that one, often people say, is the medium waiver or the one in between. And then there's the Consolidated waiver, which is uncapped. It's important to know that for all of these waivers, you have to have a need. So it's not like you can just get whatever services that you want. The consolidated waiver is not a unlimited waiver where you get whatever service you want covered. Everything is based on need, and it has to be a documented need, and it has to be through providers that are approved and things like that. The other thing to know with the Person Family Directed Service waiver, if a person is using supported employment, there is an additional $15,000 that could possibly be available because employment services can add up quickly, and then when you would be using up your waiver all on employment. So they have an extra $15,000 a year that can help you with that.
That's good to know. Good information, definitely.
There we go.
Okay. So there are other waivers in Pennsylvania that do not fall under the Office of Developmental Programs. These include adult autism, which is the autism waiver, the community health choices, which is another waiver, and OBRA. So these are all different other waivers that do not fall up under the Office of Developmental Programs, but there's a number that you will contact to reach out to, and you would do like the application over the phone, and then someone will reach back out to you in regards to continuing to fill out the information for those particular waivers.
And you want to make sure that when you take a waiver, that it is the most appropriate waiver for yourself or your loved one. Because it is hard to, once you get a waiver, it is hard to change waivers because what it is based off of need. And it's like, well, they're already, they are getting support. So if you take it, it should be based on your need and it should be fulfilling your need. So then it would be hard to argue, well, my need's not being fulfilled. I need to switch to something else. So it can get a little bit confusing and difficult. So make sure that when you accept a waiver, it is the correct waiver for the needs that need to be met, because there are some people out there who have taken a waiver just to take one so they have support, but now they're kind of like, oh, I wish I never did that. So make sure that you have you're taking what's most appropriate for you.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's very important, because just like you said, once you take it, you can't just say, oh, I want this waiver now. It doesn't work that way. You'll have to get back on the waiting list and wait until that is approved, or you might not even be approved for that. So you need to advocate and investigate exactly what it is that your loved one needs before applying for, or even accepting just any waiver.
Right. So as we said, you must register with the office in each county. So in Philadelphia, it's Philadelphia IDS. This is the phone number, 215-685-4677. The Office of Vocational Rehab is charged with providing job training and support. So this is, we didn't really talk too much about OVR, but OVR can also work with the school while your loved one is still in school. OVR really should be contacted and they should be involved in the process. Now, sometimes if OVR doesn't work out, some of this job training and support can be provided through the waiver. So if it's decided that OVR is not working out, so in some cases, OVR may deem a person unemployable, which is sometimes, hard to hear. But sometimes they may say someone is unemployable, but in that case, then the waiver can take over those services and then provide those services to an individual. So in the end, it does work out for individuals. Sometimes, really depends on the situation, but OVR is charged with providing this job training and support in the very beginning. They should be involved, and your school should be connecting you with OVR. As I said, OVR should be involved in the IEPs as well. Typically, OVR does come to some of the IEP meetings, ideally, throughout the transition process, but often like towards the end, closer to when a person is graduating, is usually what happens.
Finances, income, and legal. So when you think about finances and income, you're thinking like, how will my baby or my loved one, I still call my daughter my baby, I'm sorry. How will my adult, my young adult.
They'll always be our babies, all of them.
Yes, I can't help but say it. So you just think about ways of, they're eligible for SSI or SSD. Those things is based on the family's income before they turn 21. Once they turn 21, it's solely based on them. So even if you were working previous or even working now, once they become 21, they're adults. So you can apply, and I would say apply before they turn 21, 6 months before they turn 21 for those SSI and SSD benefits. But if you are, and it's based on your income, so you can apply now, and they can tell you no or yes based on your income if your loved one can start to receive benefits for their disabilities now. So you don't have to wait. So that's something that you can always apply for now. Also, estate planning. It is important to remember that an individual must stay under a specific resource limit. So estate planning is another thing that will help you navigate for us finances and income, because some people have trust funds or different things like that. So all of those are ways of them having financial income. Able accounts is another one that the state has allowed. So previously, before, if you will put money into someone's account who have SSI or SSD, it was only specifically SSI. There's only so much money that you can have into your account. And so families were saving money because they like, okay, my loved one don't need anything right now, but I'm gonna save it in their account until they do. So once you were saving up to like $5,000, $8,000, they were affecting their Social Security benefits, because they're saying, okay, well, if they have all this money saved up, you know, this is based on income, they don't need this much income. And that's not true. You're just saving the money and not spending it, because in actuality, even though they're not working or anything, they still need some source of income to be able to so you can continue to take care of them at home. And that's what the SSI and the SSD is for. But you want to save it up, or you're trying to save it up, so when they need an item that the waiver or either insurance doesn't pay, or you want to just save for a trip, you know, that the waiver does not pay for, you'll be able to open up an ABLE account, and the government has allowed you, I think it's like $10,000 now, Sue. Is it 10?
Oh, the ABLE accounts, actually, it's up to closer to $100,000.
Oh, they done raised it a lot.
So, but it is, you can put a certain amount in there's a certain amount that you can put in every year. But I believe it's up to about $100,000 that you can have.
They done really raised that. Good.
And it was.
When they first did it, it was $10,000, you know, that, so they done raised it, knowing that people, so that is a way that you can open up an ABLE account, and the Social Security and SSD will not bother or it won't hinder them for having that savings account. But it has to be up under an ABLE account or either a trust fund in order for SSI or SSD not to affect their continued ongoing benefits of income. So just some things to think about, ways to save money. I mean, you know, I know everyone doesn't have a trust fund, because I didn't have that for my daughter, but the ABLE account is a good thing to be able to save some money and it not affect them as for continuing to get their SSI.
Yeah, and you know, I also want to clarify just a few of the difference between SSI and SSDI. So SSI is supplemental security income. And basically that is a welfare program. So typically it's for people who haven't paid into the system, so haven't worked enough to, you know, pull off of what they've paid into. And people are supposed to be redetermined at 18. So as Janine said, when they become an adult, they're not looking at the family's individual income. They're looking at just the individual's income. So if a person is, you know, not making anything, then they would qualify for SSI, where they may not have qualified as a child because of their family income. SSDI is social security
disability
insurance, which is similar to Social Security retirement. So with SSDI, typically you have to have a work history, or you can also receive off the history of your parent. So if your parent is deceased, disabled, or retired. So if your family member, if the parent is one of those things, then their adult child could possibly also collect off of that. So there is a difference between the two. And SSI is the one that really does look at income limits. So currently it's a $2,000 income limit. Or resource limit. So if you have more than $2,000 in the bank, that's going to, you know, kick you out. You're not going to qualify for SSI. So that's important to know. With SSI, that SSDI, that's actually not as much of an issue. It's also important to know when you apply, when you reapply for SSI and Medicaid as an adult, you want to send as much documentation as possible. I have heard that up to 85% of the people who apply as adults are denied. So that means you would have to reapply. Sometimes people do get attorneys to do that. My thing is that you should really just send them as much documentation as possible. When we applied for my sons, I took each of them individually because it's hard to take them together places. I took them individually to the office. Now things have changed a little bit because of COVID, but I made sure I brought them with me so that people could see who I was applying for. And we took documentation from their very first diagnosis, is what, they had, medical issues prior to really even any diagnosis. And we took copies of all that up until the current. Now, we didn't bring every single IEP, but we brought intermittent IEPs. And then we brought every, a report from every doctor. And we made a copy of it so that when we got there, we were just like, here, you can have this. And I can say, I really felt like they appreciated that they didn't have to photocopy it. It was just like, here it is. And it went in their record. So it is a stressful process sometimes, but the more information you can provide to them, the better. Because it's also important to know that qualifying for Social Security, it's not just about the disability, but it's about the ability to earn income. So with Social Security, they look at your ability to make substantial gainful employment. So what that does is it looks at how much a person is able to earn monthly. So I often use the example of perhaps an attorney who uses a wheelchair. So for example, obviously, if this person is using a wheelchair, they have a disability. If they need to use a wheelchair, they have a physical disability. But if they're an attorney, they're working as an attorney, they're probably making more money than whatever that SGA amount is. So you can be, you can have a disability, but still be able to earn. So it's important to understand the ins and outs of all of that. Oftentimes we hear about people who may be, I hate the term higher functioning, but maybe higher functioning. So they may have a diagnosis, but they're also, they're working full time and, they are making over that amount, and that's why they don't qualify for Social Security. So it's important to understand all that. There are some other workshops out there to know, to learn about that, but it is helpful to know this stuff before you go ahead and apply for it. So that, you're giving them the information that they need.
Yeah, definitely. And just like you were saying, I think it does help when you bring them in so that they can actually physically see them. Because sometimes seeing something on paper and on writing, they're visually thinking, they're coming up with their own visualization of it. But I think it helps when they have and they can see the person in front of them to say, okay, I get a better picture of the person that's on this paper. I think that is a big help. And the other thing, just like you pointed out, is that I think it's good for everyone, if you are applying and your loved one is in need of the finances of the Social Security, the SSI, is for you to also make sure that you state that they are contributing to the household, because that is a contribution to the household because they're not physically able to work. So this will help buy their personals, even to help pay utilities, because everyone, you want everyone to contribute to the household. So it's nothing wrong with saying that $400 of that money will go towards their rent to help income. Because just like for me, I'm gonna share and be transparent that I have it's not a newer home, but we moved 5 years ago. And for me to financially be able to afford our new home, her income plays a part of that. So I take some of her income to pay towards the mortgage. So that's her rent paying into the mortgage. So every month I take $400 of her income to help pay the mortgage, because if I did not, we had to purchase a bigger home for her to be able to stay. So that's another way to look at it. So I actually put on her documentation that $400 of her dollars is going towards rent. So that's another aspect that you can think about when you're applying and filling out for your Social Security disability, because she's contributing to the household so that we can have this bigger house so that she can have her little apartment downstairs.
Thank you. So, and it's also important to know that homes are not counted as a resource. So As far as Social Security goes, you're allowed to have a home and you're allowed to have one primary vehicle that's not counted towards what your resources are. Now, they do look at other things, but your home and your car, you know, in my case, my kids' home is not in their name anyway, but they do live with us and they also contribute because, you know, they're adults and they should be contributing to the household. So thank you for that, Janine. That was good information. So then there's some other things that you need to think about. Janine mentioned special needs trusts. There are different types of special needs trusts. And, you know, there's different ways to do them. Power of attorney also, or whether you're going to go with power of attorney or guardianship or just supported decision-making, they all kind of come under the same, you know, decision-making. And you need to do your research on what works best for your loved one. Again, there's other workshops available about all this. You know, you got to decide what makes the most sense for your loved one. But really, for all of these things that we're talking about, you should contact an attorney. We cannot provide any type of legal advice. We're not lawyers. So, you know, reach out to an attorney. As far as the special needs trusts go, there are different types of special needs trusts. You want to make sure that when you're dealing with an attorney for a special needs trust, you're dealing with an attorney that specializes in special needs issues, because you want to make sure it's set up correctly. Because unfortunately, you may not find out that it's not set up correctly until it's too late. When I say that, it's usually after the family member who set it up passed away. So you want to make sure that's set up prior to it, so that, you know, whatever resources you have, or, you know, any big sums of money that your loved one may or may not, you know, may inherit, would go into a special needs trust. Again, that's something you should contact an attorney with. And also weigh your options with the special needs trust as well as an ABLE account. Some people have both. So oftentimes special needs trusts are funded with life insurance. So people buy life insurance so that when they pass away, the money from the life insurance goes into the special needs trust. But again, that's something you should contact a special needs attorney for. Again, just so you know, your uncle's cousin's brother who is an attorney may not be the most appropriate person to do that. And then again, all these decision making, you know, which is the most appropriate for your loved one, that's really something that you should explore on your own, and talk to a lawyer about, or, you know, figure it out, talk to other family members. Supported decision making is kind of a newer thing in Pennsylvania, but if you do a search on that, you would probably be able to find some information about that as well.
And another thing, just like you were saying, I think the ABLE account was the best thing they done, because you don't have to pay any money. Like the special need trust is something that you have to pay a lawyer, and everyone doesn't, you know, necessarily financially have that money to pay a lawyer to do that documentation. And just like you were saying, you got to update it, because I was able to get a special needs trust, but then, you know, I had to update it continuously, because, you know, that person, just like she said, is getting older, becoming a senior citizen. So I might need to put her siblings on there. Now, just thinking about it, I do have to change it, you know. And then the other thing, you have especially if it's two people on there, two people have to go to get the money out and different things like that, where ABLE account, you don't have to do that, and the money can go in there. And then the money, if something happens to your loved one, the money can go to someone else that's on that ABLE account. That makes it a little bit better, and you don't have to do all the paperwork for it. So it's just a really nice feature for that ABLE account that I just think is a good thing, definitely. And you can always look at legal aid for help and assistance, you know, and the Archester County has some good information about guardianship and things like that.
Yeah, and the other thing that usually goes along with a special needs trust is a will. So that's, again, something you want to contact a special needs attorney about, because, you know, if something happens to you and you're the primary caregiver at this point, who's going to take over? You know, what are your thoughts? And you know, when we talk about this stuff, I always say, like, this is not like, you know, simple, lighthearted stuff. This is all really, you know, challenging things.
Yes.
We don't ever mean to, you know, suggest that, oh, just, you know, just go find a go find a lawyer
Yeah.
and pay for it, because it all costs a lot of money. We,
Yes.
as parents, you know, both Jeannie and I are moms, and we get that point. But just be aware that these are issues. Don't stress yourself out about it. But just, you know, make a list of things that you should look into, and, you know, just start listening to workshops like this that can help you figure out, you know, what your next step is on that type of stuff. So
Yes.
I really should have added wills as part of this as well. Okay. For whatever reason, I'm having technical difficulty. There we go.
Okay.
So some other legal issues and reminders. If your loved one does not have an ID, a state ID, now's a good time to get that. It is easier to get the ID prior to 18. They actually require less documentation. So if they're younger than 18, you might want to try and go and get it now. You know, you can go on the website and figure out what you need, you know, proof of address and things like that. But, you know, it's good to have an ID. And at some point, you will need an ID to register for different things. If your loved one is 18 and hasn't registered to vote, you know, hopefully they're interested in voting. Everyone has the right to vote. I can tell you that my sons love voting. They love to go and see everyone in the at the voting polling place. They love that. That's like one of the things they do every 6 months. They're like, are we going to the voting church? Because it's, well, the one says that, the other one doesn't. And the ladies all know them, and it's, you know, it's a good experience for them. But everyone has a right to you know, to vote. So register to vote. If you are registered with the ID system, they will continually ask you if you're registered to vote. If you have a son, make sure that they are registered for the draft. I know for many of us, it seems silly, but at this point, that is the law, that you need to register to vote. You don't want anyone showing up at your house because your son's not registered. I'm sorry, registered for the draft. You know, we want everyone to be treated equally. So of course we want to, so let's register, you know, make sure they're registered for the draft, because that's the law. Explore what makes sense for your family. As you know, as I just said, like, we recognize a lot of this stuff is very challenging. We are here to provide support and resources for you. So feel free to reach out to us at any point. Make sure you keep good notes and documentation. You know, and I say this all the time, I don't always keep as good as documentation as I should, but make sure things are documented. I always say, like, if you're having a problem and it's all happening in conversation, make sure you put it in an email. Like, having a paper trail is so important, because that, you know, that provides accountability. It also helps you sometimes, you know, if you weren't able to write it down in a note, you can go back through your email and say, like, oh yeah, we did, you know, we did discuss this, or perhaps you didn't discuss it, but making sure you have documentation is really, really important. Don't be afraid to ask questions and do your research. You know, we always say that talking to families is really, you know, how you find out the most information. That being said, make sure you do your research, because what works for my family doesn't always work for someone else's family, and what works for Janine's family may not work for someone else's family. But talk to other families. Families will usually be very honest and share what is working for them. So
yes, definitely.
You know, do your research. You know, sometimes I talk to people who are like, you know, I'm so overwhelmed, and I get that, but really the best way to get over that is just start, you know, to start getting things taken care of, make the list, and start checking them off, you know, so just start planning as you can. Again, don't stress yourself out about it, but you know that many of us are in the same position, but, you know, start working on it and ask questions if you need to.
Yeah, and just like you said, I think the important thing everyone needs to know, you got to do a little investigation. You got to work at it. You know, it's things that I know, just like Sue was saying, you get overwhelmed, and but you can get some help to navigate that. Us as family navigation, we can help you with that. If you have any challenges, or if you need someone to help you, stay focused on those checklists, that's what we're here for. We can also do that through the family navigation, because we understand that it can be challenging and difficult at times, and you might not know where to go or who to go. So here we are, Sue, right?
Here we are. So that's where we're going to talk about some of our resources. So this is the Philadelphia Support Project. So that's us. And as we mentioned, we do the navigation project, and we also have the trauma informed care program, which is what this workshop is part of. And basically with the trauma informed program, we provide workshops, and we provide some support groups, which is a great way to meet other families. So please join us when you can. We also have the PA Family Network, which is part of Vision for Equality. I do a little bit of work with them as well. And they have some really, really great workshops on planning. They have great waiver workshops. So if you have any questions about waivers, or a lot about waivers, you don't know much at all, I highly recommend checking out the website and listening to some of their waiver workshops. I often tell people, just log in, you can turn off your camera, put it on mute, and just listen. You can listen while you're doing the dishes, you can listen while you're making dinner. I, have done these trainings numerous times. I've done these type of trainings literally for years back in, over the years, I've done many, many trainings on waivers. And I can tell you, every time I listen, and sometimes I listen when I'm not facilitating, I learn something. So whether it's from someone else who's presenting, or from a family member who shares information, it is great, and it's really helpful. So, and it's not meant to be like a stressful, like, as I said, log in, you can turn off your camera, turn off your sound, and just listen. And then if you have questions, you can reach back out to them. The PA Assistant Technology Foundation actually provides some information on saving money and things like that people with disabilities should think about.
Yeah, and especially that PA assisted technology is a really good one, because they will give you a low interest loan of 1%, and it can help you buy anything for your loved one. They have criteria of different things, but like me, I purchased a van. They actually helped me to finance the portion of it. The waiver gave $19,000 towards the handicap accessible portion of the equipment of the van, and PA assistive technology, funded the rest of the van for me with only 1% interest. So, I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, it was the best thing ever. And I still have that van. It's going on, it's 15 years I've had it. So it's still ticking and running. So I'm thinking about maybe possibly reaching out to them again. And the other one right above that is the DBHIDS, is where you would sign up for the waivers. And the Department of Intellectual Disability of Philadelphia. So that link is also there. So we encourage you to apply as soon as possible for your loved one if you have not already applied for the waiver.
Okay. So just keep in mind, without questions, there is no learning. So we hope that you have learned something today from us, and feel free to reach out to us with any further questions. And thank you for taking the time to listen to us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
For more information, you can reach out to Shu Allegra, who is our program manager. This is her email address and her phone number. And at any point, feel free to reach out to us.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us today.
And have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.